All right. These are one of my most favorite conversations when they're literally international. Gaia, welcome to the Leader Who Cares series.
Oh, thank you, Mark. What a treat to be here.
On Halloween, we're not in our costumes in case I'm scaring anybody, or not you, but but happy Halloween. And this will be a fun, spooky time, a fun, spooky day. But you have an interesting background for sure, by whom and how you were raised, and so on, which we'll get into, and all the great stuff you've done and are doing. But can you start by briefly introducing yourself, not business and all that, but a little bit about Gaia, where you're from originally, where you are now, anything you feel comfortable talking about family, maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world now. Those are always fun. Yeah, a little bit about you.
Let's see. My name's Gayatri, but everybody calls me Gayatri Roshan, and I'm currently sitting in London, on Abbey Road. And fun fact is that my stepdad had lunch with John Lennon just a week before he died, and not far from here.
Oh,
So I don't know.
wow.
I've never told anyone that, Mark.
That
So
is that's like I'm jealous. That's spectacular. A week before he was shot though.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that's the story. It's pretty epic.
It is.
So I am yeah, I'm an unschooled child of some quite radical thinkers, and who were yeah, communists, raised communists, atheist in Sri Lanka and the west coast of Scotland. And I escaped to become a capitalist when I was 16 and started a company, a media company that I cashed out of at 21 and ended up in California, and have spent most of my life, spent all of my life really in the climate space. And that is where 2 decades of filmmaking and most recently a tech company for the last 5 years.
Which we'll get into. You want to share anything about what your kids are wearing for Halloween today?
Hmm. So they have decided to be scary Victorian dolls, I think maybe inspired by being in London. And they have cracks and jaws, and I'm their puppet master, hence all black with a top hat and gloves. This is my like you're seeing a section of my outfit. This is the
Okay, we get the advanced showing or something.
yeah,
Well, that's pretty cool. You're going to send us a picture, right?
absolutely.
Awesome. What were you like with all that said? And that's a unique background for sure. With all that said, what were you like as a kid or a teenager? Were you exploring? Were you doing film? Were you dolls or tomboy? What were you into?
I was so as a teenager, I was largely alone and in nature, and so I was extremely quiet and very observant and very much a tomboy. I rode motocross, I rode horses, but always daredevil stuff, and I felt very much like I was definitely on the like boy side of things. Um, but quiet, really quiet. I found it's taken me years to find my voice. In fact, this is the first time I've ever allowed anyone to film me.
Oh, well, I'm glad we're on the first. That's pretty cool. Um,
I like my voice to be behind the camera, behind the scenes, writing, telling other people what they need to say, asking the right questions. That's my job.
well,
But here I am.
I could somewhat relate because one of my sons is an actor, but another one who was going to be instead decided to go behind the scenes and do music and all sorts of different things like that. So I can kind of get it. Were you back then? Were you before you got officially into film? Were you doing skits? Were you organizing people to do little acts or anything like that? Or were you into any sports?
No, I mean, I was, no school, so like no social life particularly. So I don't know. I feel like I maybe might have been sporty had I had the opportunity, but all of the sports I did were really solo or with my brothers. Um, it was very much like, how long can I disappear out in nature without anyone finding me? Um, that was like survival skills.
You would have
It
been
was,
good. You would have been good working with Jane Goodall.
I would have actually, goodness,
That
bless
would have been
her.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
During those years, what were you envisioning for yourself while you were thinking alone in the forest? What were you thinking for yourself?
Um, it's interesting growing up so far outside of like the regular context. There was no kind of obvious career path, and there was no real opportunity for a career path. And I think at the time, like I have no idea what I was thinking at the time. I can't really remember even projecting back. I remember having an extremely curious mind and crushing books, nonstop. Biographies. I must have read 1,000 of them. And I loved just like the life experience that you get from, yeah, getting people's entire lives. Um, but I would say, looking back, there is a feeling of continuity, which is that I've I care. That is my like core experience of the world is I care and I am deeply connected to the part of myself that cares, and that has not been beaten out of me by school or by capitalism or by anything else. And what I've always searched for is the opportunity to experience that. And I think for me, it's been much more of a process of elimination. I've tried lots of things, and the things that make me feel good, I have stuck to and I've kept going. And I've been paid my entire life to care. I've never had to do anything that I didn't feel really strongly about, that really like lit me up and that made my heart sing. I
It,
realize
it,
that's an incredibly privileged position to be in, but it also comes from someone, I don't know, I have always had to make my own money. I've always had to go my own way and without any support from my parents and all the rest of it. So there is an element of like, yeah, I would just say that care is right at the center of it for me.
I love the fact, first of all, this series is about leaders who care, so that kind of works out really
That's
well.
right. There we go.
And it's for real why we do work only with clients and whatnot that are leaders who care because we need it desperately. About it, they care about everything, including people and nature and animals and so on. I find it fascinating because as kids, there's always a thread that goes further, even though we think we might have got away from it, of what happened to us as kids, positive, negative, etc. And I would say that there's probably not enough reading that goes on right now, including about maybe biographies and people that have made a difference out there to have a foundation to then do something great that you care about rather than, okay, I got to go to school, I got to go to college, I got to get a job, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to get the dog, I got to get married, and the whole thing already planned, type of thing, rather than the connection you probably had with yourself and with nature about what's important and to care. So I find it fascinating, and I'll give you an example why, because most, especially men executives that I talk to, they share with me something that happened in their when they were a kid, whether it was a coach on a sports team putting them in a special moment of the game that was important, or somebody said, whatever art project you did was the best thing ever. And that's their one point of confidence, that foundation for the rest of their lives. That's that one person believed in them. And I find it really interesting when I talk to people and like yourself saying what you were looking at that time really can set the tone, but then you got to make the decision, like you said, to keep caring and
Yeah.
not get tainted by it. You know, our firm was based on the premise it's about talent and leadership and impact. That business leaders who care will always do better for their business when they do make a social impact or environmental impact. And we trademark the term leaders who care because those are the people that understand the value each individual can bring to the table and the well-being that they need. How did you arrive at capitalizing on TV and film? I mean, you did campaigns, you did impactful documentaries. but real lives of people, which sounds to me impacted by all the biographies maybe you read. So how did you capitalize on TV and film to make a difference?
Um, I do feel that my life has been a somewhat accidental series of things. I mean, I would like to say that there was a career path or intentionality. There wasn't, but there's definitely it should feel a certain way. Like that's, and I've been tapped for things which have surprised me immensely over the years. I mean, I've worked with NASA and IKEA and Fetzer at Gates Foundation. I've had the extraordinary, and every single one of those are not jobs I applied for. They are just people meeting me and saying, "Oh, we need you to help us understand our agriculture program." There is just mostly my field is deep ecology, not agriculture, but I do a bit of both. And I think that there's an element of really um, knowing what I care about and being able to recognize it when it's in my field and move towards it and take advantage of it. And in some ways, I have been offered opportunities which I can't really even describe. I mean, I ended up spending 5 years working with King Charles because somebody overheard me talking to a friend in a coffee shop. And that is it. Now, at that point, I'd already made quite a few films, but I was like, I mean, who could have ever known? I just don't know. And when I look back, most of the fantastic things that I've done, and there's been many failures along the way, but they've all come from a sort of random interaction that has led to the next thing happening. And so I feel like in some ways I'm just a passenger, and my job is to show up for these situations and be willing to let my heart break and move towards the aliveness and not shut down. I think that's kind of maybe my main kind of role. I feel like I'm giving you the most awkward answers, Mark.
No, they're great. You know, it's not always the loudest voice that does win. It's sometimes the softest voice that's overheard or appreciated, or there's an energy that comes from it that makes things happen. Which makes me think about sitting alone in nature and things. The energy just happens. So I think there is a lot to that hopefully even business leaders start taking more and more interest in.
I would say some of my mentors, in the business space have really said, the harder the time you're having and the more intense, which, companies, businesses are so intense, the more meditation and the more self-care is required. And I've noticed this immeasurably. There's some days when I just know that the only way to be able to hold the center is to take sometimes multiple hours, maybe 2 hours of like alone time to really make sure that I'm really know where I am at all times and I'm not just spinning into all of the places. And I feel like those are some of my best coaches and mentors in this role have really helped me to stay in that place.
Well, it's
Yeah. So
brilliant because I also get a lot of I have a lot of discussions about how executives are really torn with quarterly reporting, financial reporting, because that's all they end up having to do. They finish this quarterly report and they're already working on the next one because the investors or the shareholders are worried about that. And they can't even think about long-term decisions. They hope their board maybe thinks about them, but they can't because they're too busy doing that. And one thing I learned from sports, a great coach, was visualization way back when, before they even were really talking about meditation. But it's kind of like a type of meditation, visualizing, and about and your brain experiencing maybe something you even want to have happen before you have it happen, but the brain thinks it's already happened, and it
that
works.
it really does. Yeah, it really
So,
does.
and I
Pause.
get sitting in nature and whatnot and taking those 2 hours is when a lot of those things do happen. And
Mhm.
I also think with AI, there may be more opportunity now. I know the leadership type of leaders that we our clients need are different types of leaders these days that are looking more into that because AI is going to take away a lot of the stuff that they're busy with, hopefully, and be able
Yes.
to even have their employees share and being happier doing what they want to do. And with that
Mhm.
said, when I first met you and started learning about you and talking, it brought quotes to mind for me. And Maya Angelou is one of my favorite quotes, where it says, she said, people most people at mostly what you've said, they'll forget mostly what you've done, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Oh, I love that.
It's awesome in every aspect of every business of everything. If you don't make them feel anything, they're probably not going to remember what you said or what you've done. But if you do, they might. And Were there any specific experiences, inflection points that stand out, like aha moments for you that impacted you to the point of even continuing to what we're going to talk about in a little bit, what you're doing now?
Yeah. It's I feel like as a human, it's hard not to like center yourself all the time. And I've noticed I've worked in indigenous communities in every one of my film projects, and that's in 20 countries at this point. And I've noticed that there's some real similarities. So it's not a quote, but I would say that it's a real consistent piece of it's a very simple line, and it is, I am because you are. And this is something that in different, they say it differently in different places, but I am because you are is a fundamental truth that is really lost inside the kind of colonized, frankly, mind that we are currently inhabiting in this Western world. And I think that the decentering of one's self is a really key component to just peaceful existence. Um, and I think when you talk about leadership, it's I'm capable of leading in a way that is in which I'm hyper vigilant about everything that is happening. And it's taken years to develop a leadership team around me that I trust so profoundly. And I'm aware that I am because they are. That is it. There is no, there isn't any separation. This isn't like a hierarchy. I get to do me because they get to do them. And I am extremely aware of that. I would say that like this is a really this is something that I feel very, very strongly about. And then there's in terms of just like life, that's one that's sort of been in my life for a long time and sort of keeps showing up. There's one kind of more inflection point, one which is I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that because that's what the world needs. And I want to attribute it to, and it's embarrassing, well, no, Howard Thurman, I think probably. Um, and I think as someone who cares and sees all of the things that frankly, need doing, and as someone who has a lot of competency, I feel like I could teach myself anything because I've had to teach myself everything. How do you choose where your energy goes? And I think that there was just this moment, and especially when I was working on mass extinction issues, where it can be very overwhelming for the nervous system and depressing. And I think that that moment and that quote helped to orient me to um, where it's just so simple. I'm like, that makes me come alive. That doesn't. That makes me come alive. That doesn't. And you know what? That thing that doesn't make someone else come alive. And together we are all able to do anything. And that is I think it's something that's missing. I think it's beaten out of us as children in this culture. To say, you know the line, but actually that aliveness is a really fundamental part of the human experience and contextualized in the collective, it's really important. Alone, it could become problematic.
Yeah, well, we always talk, I do a lot of sports analogies. We talk about teams win championships, and the teams that win championships trust each other, to your point about trust. And the companies that do well, and do well is not just about money, but it's included in there. It's not a bad thing to make money. The management teams trust each other to talk. There's another expression we use very a lot is clear is kind. The
Mhm.
the clearer you are with people, the kinder you absolutely are. Because if they don't understand what you're saying, nothing's going to work, type of thing. So all the things you're talking about. The one thing I love about when you said "I am because you are," to me, it also maybe talks about because I've seen athletes and business people. the real great ones study the people that have done what they've done in their industry. Sports athletes, superstars understand the history of the game and the players that played. And some people
Mm.
think, well, that's a waste of time. They played in this and that, and you got to do what you do now. But it gives them a foundation to be great as they are in what they do. And so when you said I am because you are, it also gave me the sense of because all the people before that I'm
That's right.
standing on their shoulders of what they did. And they take the time to do that rather than some people think, well, I got to look at now. Times have changed. I got to do this and that, whatever. Fine, you do have to look at now also. But the foundation, the ground and everything was built, for you to stand on, the shoulders to stand on. So I love that quote.
I
And
mean, that's absolutely it. And when you think, we're a social species, we actually can't survive on our own. And it's the same thing. We can't survive without our life support system, right? Without air, without water, without food. These are all the interlockingness of life and the interconnectedness of life is really an important thing to be able to capture in a mind that wants to reduce everything down to I and it, right? Like these are important
there's
drugs.
a lot of conversation going on we're having with executives right now about AI and all the layoffs and things that are going to happen. And we've had some conversations where maybe AI is the technology that finally is the one that's going to make us happy. Because technology was also supposed to make us happier because it's going to do whatever it's going to do. But maybe AI is, and some of the conversations around let's get out of titles like capitalism and socialism, and you're a CFO and you're this. Let's get out of categories and titles and whatnot, and determine what do we want to achieve, and not call it anything because when we call it something, it usually taints the progress because it's socialism or it's this or it's that or universal, whatever. But maybe it's an opportunity for business leaders to still do great by the money they're going to save with AI, but also put a lot of that money towards employees instead of going on unemployment to be allocated to communities and whatnot and countries, whatever, to do plant gardens in every school around the country, whatever it may be, assist teachers, work in the forest, whatever. And the company will get benefit from the branding and all that. The people will be happier and they'll still make more money because they're saving it on AI. So maybe there's a chance of something like that happening.
That's very
Ideological,
altruistic
right?
kind of thinking. I think it's hard for leaders who are trapped in a an incentive system which demands, financial returns above all else. So I think that, leaders and business leaders are extremely challenged in the face of AI. But I mean, there's some extraordinary things coming out of this transition. And I mean, there's things like I would recommend an AI called Aiden Cinnamon Tea that is decades of indigenous knowledge has been built into this AI. And in terms of thinking, changing your mindset and trying to um, contextualize yourself in a new way, I highly recommend it as a daily practice, frankly. Like it will check you on your language, on what it is that you're thinking, and it will help you to think in a relational instead of an extractive fashion. And I think that the unemployment issue is, it is in one direction, it's potentially, you know, Nazi Germany. In the other direction, it's a rethinking of our why. Like, why are we here? It is
Right.
not work 9 to 5, right? So, what the rethinking of our why, both as a species, as a society, and as individuals, is an incredibly compelling, you know, provocation, I think, that AI is giving us. But I don't know that the structures of, capitalist companies can hold the type of altruism that you're thinking. I think we need to go a little deeper into our infrastructure, both mentally and, in terms civically, to really be able to build structures that are in support of the commons, which is honestly what humans do so well, is manage commons.
No, I agree. If you make it an economic model where they can do that, or else they're going to have to pay for unemployment, for healthcare, for crime, for everything, then it becomes, potential. The old communities used to be built on there was a town center, and everybody came to the town center to be together and do stuff. There's an opportunity to get to that point, if you will. Not exactly every town, but I think AI could give that opportunity. I wanna since we say in LA, and you would know this, that you want to leave people wanting more, so we can do a sequel. That's what happens out here. But I want to move on to what you're doing now, related to what we're talking about. And they say the fourth industrial revolution is really about AI and tech, no doubt about it. But a lot of people are saying the fifth is about humanity, which is kind of what we're talking about. You co-founded Dashboard.Earth, and I believe you said there was a gap where people want to make a difference to take meaningful climate action, though often challenges and situations seem so huge they don't know where to start. And I see that all the time, even in daily life. I got so much to do, so you do nothing, basically. Or I'm not going to make a difference. One vote won't count. I don't need to vote. All this stuff on that. This also circles back to what we're talking about. Every individual has value, and the quotes we mentioned. Can you share the vision, the mission, and how you allow people to feel great, to be of value, and turn their efforts into what you call verified climate outcomes?
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I am I mean I just because of the context, because of the conversation we had so far, I almost want to like back up a little bit
Hmm.
and come in via this idea, like we're imprinted with this idea that we are fundamentally here to extract, right? Extract money, extract resources, and we're a locust on the planet. We're a locust on an accidental planet. And actually, the reality is that we're a keystone species and we are so powerful. I mean, we have since the 70s lost 75% of our invertebrates. Like we're living in an extinction event that we haven't had in millions of years. We're in the sixth great extinction. And there's some level, even if you go around your daily life, there's some level in which you know that. And there's a completely other way of being in the world, which really says that I am supposed to be here. I am needed. I have value. My care matters. My care for other humans matter. My care for life itself matters. My care for other life form matters. And so because of the conversation we've been having, I kind of want to start there. But if I was talking to a VC, I would have a different, I'm just going to say that, I'd have a different pitch.
I get it.
Reality of like what we do, what Dashboard Earth does, is we basically, how do I want to say it today? We need to adapt because every 3 weeks in the US, there is $1 billion climate disaster on average. And LA fires completely avoidable had we have adapted, right? Like every single dollar that we invest in adaptation unlocks 12 to $42. It returns 12 to $42. So what our platform does is it takes the actions necessary to adapt a region and it puts them into an app. And it provides that app for the 67% of people who have climate anxiety. 75% feel a personal responsibility to act on climate. They don't know how. 51% say they don't know how. So we basically make it incredibly easy for individuals to act on climate. We have hundreds of actions that relate to every single thing that can be done. Now, it is fun, it's gamified, they get paid directly, they get prizes, they're in community, we have meetups, all the rest of it. It's super fun. And our referral rate's been doubling for the last 6 months. We've seen 140% quarter-on-quarter growth for 18 months. The wonderful part about this is how we pay for these actions. So basically, we take these, whether it's planting a tree or changing a light bulb or taking public transit or choosing to walk to go get your coffee, anything that you want pretty much is on there. And we take these tiny, tiny actions and we basically say they have a financial value. And we verify them, we aggregate them up and we turn them into verified climate outcomes. Now, whether you are a corporation or a foundation or a utility or government agency, you are dependent in some way on getting outcomes, whether it's getting people to use less water and making sure your employees are engaged and retained at work, meeting ESG targets, buying offsets, engaging students if you're a university. These are all people and entities and organizations that need verified climate outcomes. So essentially, on one side, we have people like the largest privately held parking company, the Department of Water and Power, Accelerate Resilience Los Angeles, buying these verified climate outcomes, and we're passing that money into people's pockets because there's real value in it. And we're at an incredibly exciting point because we've opened in 3 regions in California and we're about to open in 18 across North America. And what makes me so happy about it is that it really is it's a situation in which we've tied directly money, the more money we make, the more impact we have, right? These two are locked in, and we're on track to be $1 billion business 5 years from now. But we need to really make sure that we're unlocking it in a way that is regional, that makes sense for people on the user side, and that these outcomes are what the buyers are really looking for. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And it's been a feat and it's been fun to do it, but I am in a new phase. Hence, I'm in front of the camera right now. I'm like, it works. Come on, everybody.
Well, you're in
This is
front of the
good.
camera because I believe in what you're doing, and clients talk to me about this stuff, and I'm looking forward to talking more about how we can partner together on that, and it's good for business to be able to retain your employees, have a great morale, feel like you are doing something. As we talked before, it's not rocket science, but as anything, you have to make it somewhat easy for people just to do, so it doesn't become another job to do, which I think you're doing. What is a very just quickly? What does a verified climate outcome look like?
So a verified climate outcome it's organized by tons of carbon. So right now we can get individuals to create a ton of carbon, which is mitigate a ton of carbon. And with it, we also have the impact of on water, on air, on we collect some energy impacts, right? There's many different impacts in our particular verified climate outcome. So we can also do like volunteer hours. So we have a very robust impact model that captures hundreds of types of action. It verifies them in 7 different ways in 3 different tiers. And it essentially is a form of securitizing regional climate resilience. And these verified climate outcomes are essentially a new market, but whether you are buying an offset and you want something that's not over there, in another country, maybe in the global south, but it's right here where you operate as a company, where you operate. Whether you have ESG targets, one of our clients is owned by a private equity company. They have ESG targets for their entire portfolio. They're now getting those ESG targets fulfilled through their own employees while improving morale, while improving retention. And every time we go into a company like Beyond Meat, the anxiety levels are exactly the same across the general population around climate anxiety. And people come out the other end of these programs saying the reason why do you reopen the app? Why did you keep coming back? Because I had less anxiety. So as an employer, your employees have less anxiety, they are more productive. So what we've created is a win-win-win for every stakeholder in every aspect of this. Um, Everything that we do is we work with a company called Earth Economics to really figure out what the numbers are, but we are using impact models that are pre-existing impact models in whether it's a tree that we're talking about or whether it's a pound of compost. There's models for all of these things. We just aggregate existing models, and depending on the client, we can use different models. Our data is, yeah, pretty.
I love it. When I go down to the beach to exercise or whatnot every day, there's a tree I hug on the way there and on the way back. Do I get any credit for that?
I think you know what I decided is that I've filmed in 20 countries. I've seen adaptation in every part of I've filmed every part of the adaptation story. And We have all the solutions. We know what to do. There are billions of dollars out there, billions of dollars that need these outcomes. And everybody finally cares. I'm not the only 7-year-old with climate anxiety anymore. And verify that there is an ecologically relevant action, then you can get paid for it. This is the light bulb that went off in my head. Like if I can verify that an ecologically relevant action took place, I can get you paid for it. Now, hugging a tree is an ecologically relevant action because it is creating biophilia, a love of nature, right? Like that you are understanding your nervous system is attuning to a nervous system greater than yours. It is vitally important. And out there somewhere is someone who's willing to pay for that hugging of a tree. And, I would suggest that they are maybe there may be a foundation or it might be a campaign around eco-literacy, right? That we are going to incentivize people to do. I've been asked to do several campaigns recently where we're the call to action for a campaign, and one of them is specifically around ecological education, understanding planetary boundaries, and how our and attuning nervous systems to natural systems. They might be the ones who will pay you for that. Like
So
that is a
I could sell my business and hug trees like crazy and do fine.
but we're coming back to like the AI thing. It is completely ridiculous that there is no work, right? There is so much work, and actually the work that needs to be done is so much more
Right.
interesting than the work that you're being paid for, right? But like all of this work that needs to be done is invisible. And so for me, like when I think about like one of the reasons for doing this is I'm like, we need some kind of income that isn't a lot of our sources of income are going away. But there's actual value in adaptation, and we are not able to see it and we're not able to transact on it. And I want to make it possible for anyone that wants to work on climate should be being paid to work on climate, and whether they want to do it all day long or just once a week hugging a tree. And I, may or may not be able to get them paid for that. I can certainly get you a prize, and I can get you points and
I
other
get a
things.
prize.
A gold badge mark.
A little sticker. Um, no, it's I get enough verified outcome by doing it, every day already. So, but it's interesting. The future of work, as it's quote unquote called, should be and can be significantly changed by what you're doing and what AI is doing. Kind of related to what I was talking about a little bit. Even though you said altruistic, I understand that, but it can change that. Why are we doing work, whatever work is, when we should maybe be doing stuff that'll make us really happy? So, so I got we're gonna have to definitely do a sequel, but I got one more question in this part. Um, a client told me in 2021, he called the year 2020 during the pandemic. He said it was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought,
Mm.
what a great comment. And so many people feel like COVID was yesterday and years ago, all at the same time. With all that said, we're already at the end of 2025, amazingly.
Mm.
What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Hmm. I think 2025 has been a beast. And I have like on a personal level as well as on a professional level as well as on a global and national level. And I think that the thing that I'm most grateful for is um having the opportunity personally and as a nation, and I've been in the US for 25 years, um, to really face our collective shadow. I mean, this is really, we have taken we've taken a whatever it is, the blue pill. We have seen everything that we have been doing to the rest of the world is now being done to us in our own country. And it's brutal, but it is also necessary to rip the band-aid off and see what is actually truthfully happening here. We have gone off the rails a long time ago. And I think the thing that I've found from, when systems fall apart in the way that they are now, when things you've depended on in your psyche, in your body, in your community, in your country disappear, this is a trauma event, and it's a trauma event, and in a trauma event you can either shrink down or you can grow from it. And I mean, I'm seeing both things happen, but I think that the opportunity here is to really own our power. And that is something, if there was a president that I thought was taking care of climate, I might like kick back and go on vacation. Biden, from my perspective, Biden was an extraordinary from a climate adaptation perspective. It's the first time I've ever had a real climate bill, and to see all of that work, disappear has been gutting and heartbreaking. And we have the capacity to do so much at the local level. And that was always true. And there's a group called the C40, who are the biggest uh, cities in the world, and so the C40 is their kind of climate program. Every three-quarters of them are achieving their climate goals faster than their national governments, and that is also true in the US. At the municipal level, climate is not a political issue. It is just, if you're in Portland on day 4 of a heat wave, is the traffic light going to melt onto the street or not? That is it. It is money, and it is, are we going to go bankrupt or not? They're going to go bankrupt unless they adapt. So the thing that is exciting to me about this and the possibility is people actually choosing to step into their own power, understand their value, give their lives meaning, and not be like nannied by or lulled into a false sense of security, frankly. So I mean, harsh in some ways, but I'm a great believer in, as you were saying, clarity, the truth. Some people say to clarify is to offend. And I think that there's an element of clarity that is in this moment, which I am grateful for. And the pain is real. The pain is real.
No,
Sorry, that was a
I
lot.
think I do think that clear is kind. It's the kindest thing you can do for a person, even if it's tough love type of thing. You can. Well, I'll tell you what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for having a new friend. That's for sure. That's awesome, and I'm also grateful and probably grateful and hopeful that you are a leader who cares from way back when, as I find out, and that's important because there's always hope. And I think a lot of people want hope. So I think with what you're doing, also we'll give them that. So thanks for being a leader who cares, and thanks for being on the series.
Thank you so much, Mark. What a pleasure.